From our studios in New York, here again is Stone Phillips.
Dramatic things happen every day in operating rooms. Doctors performing all kinds of life-enhancing, life-saving surgeries. But it's not every day that an OR breaks into cheers and applause at the end of an operation. Early today at California's UCLA Medical Center, doctors and nurses had every reason to celebrate. Just after midnight, surgeons separated conjoined twins, two baby girls, in a grueling 22-hour procedure. But at midday today, there was cause for concern. Dateline and Telemundo have had exclusive access for months now. Here with the latest is Telemundo's Maria Celeste Ajaraz.
Everyone had goosebumps at the end of the procedure. People were cheering, people were clapping, people were crying.
At the UCLA Medical Center in Los Angeles this morning, relief and hope. In only the fifth separation of twins conjoined at the head, two tiny sisters, Maria Teresa and Maria de Jesus Quies Alvarez, Las Mariitas, the Little Marias, were free to begin their separate lives.
We were very successful in doing what we wanted to do, which is to separate the two babies and to give them each their own brain, their own skull, their own blood vessels in the skull, and all that happened.
The 22-hour operation that began yesterday morning was the beginning of the end of a long odyssey that started when the girls were born in a remote Guatemala village on July 25, 2001. The twins were delivered by cesarean section after their mother, 22-year-old Alba Leticia Alvarez, had been in labor for 8 days. It's an incredibly rare case, believed to occur only once in every 2.5 million births. They were born attached at the crown of their heads, facing in opposite directions. Their brains were not attached, but the pair shared crucial blood vessels at the top of their heads that drained blood from each other's bodies. 10 months after the little Marias were born, Dateline traveled to Guatemala with the lead UCLA neurosurgeon Dr. Jorge Lazarev to follow them on their incredible medical journey. Dr. Lazarev had to consult with Guatemalan doctors, examine the girls, and make the life and death call on whether it was even possible to consider the procedure. We spoke with the girls' young parents about what they were facing.
What we think of the separation is only that the outcome will be God's will, not ours. If He wants to leave us one child, that will be His gift to us. And if He takes them both, that would be His will also.
If God gives us two, then God gives us two. And if God gives us one, that is the way it is.
Are you worried about the surgery?
Yes.
The Mariitas traveled with their mother from Guatemala City to Los Angeles in June. None of them had ever been on a plane before. In a strange country where she didn't understand the language, the mother had to put her faith in the hands of the doctors.
You may start on the center, then go to the back, see what happens.
Even though none of the doctors had ever done this kind of complex and dangerous procedure before, after extensive testing, they agreed to give it the green light.
The biggest challenge for us is that, first of all, there are two patients together, and they're attached to each other in a way that complicates anesthesia. They also share circulation, so that blood from one baby goes to the other baby, so that drugs that we give to one baby affect the other baby.
If the operation wouldn't take place, the girls could live normally, within the circumstances. How many years?
Biologically, but they probably could live 30 or 40 years. But again, it is hard to say. But certainly they will have a very awful or miserable life. And I have to emphasize that we didn't go to the parents and told them that they have had these babies operated on. The parents want these babies to be separated. They do understand that.
I want you to talk to me about that particular vein that they share that is so crucial to their functioning of their brains.
Somehow they actually share the outlet of that blood. The venous blood from Maria de Jesus goes into Maria Teresa's system and goes through a very thick vein located in the forehead or in the frontal portion of the brain of Maria de Jesus that goes into the back portion of the head of Maria Teresa.
The young parents looked on as their babies were taken into surgery. Then, the UCLA medical team of 50 specialists went to work.
They've studied them in 3 dimensions, every way they can, but until you're really there, you don't really know, but that is the big unknown right now.
In the first surprise of this risky operation, it took 5 hours to complete the anesthesia process. That's 3 hours more than they had hoped for. The reason? Doctors were concerned about correctly placing the lines of tubings in the girls that are not laying flat on the operating table. 12 hours in, the neurosurgeon started the delicate process of separating the twins' veins. This was the most critical part of the operation, as doctors had to redirect each girl's blood flow so that vessels could drain properly. If they don't, they could face brain damage, a stroke, or even death.
We have to be very positive about what we're going to do. I'll use the word cautiously optimistic, or maybe I should say cautious and optimistic.
Late into the night and early morning hours, the demanding operation continued. Doctors and nurses worked in tag teams to relieve each other. At 10:20 Pacific time, a reassuring phone call from a nurse to the twins' parents.
They're doing well. The brain is about to separate now, and everything is going well at this point.
Moments later, more good news.
All of the veins are gone, all the dura's gone, all the bone's gone. All that we need is to separate the scalp and they'll come apart.
And finally, nearly a full day after it all began, 2 tiny gurneys emerged from the operating room, each with a Maria aboard.
When we return, the wait is over. Mother and father see their daughters for the first time since the surgery. Their day began with a sigh of relief. The parents of the conjoined baby girls from Guatemala know their children have been separated. They know at this point the doctors are pleased. Now mother and father face the moment they have waited for so long, the chance to see their daughters apart for the first time. Here again, Maria Celeste Ajaraz.
When the 2 Marias were brought out of surgery this morning, they were rushed into pediatric intensive care in critical condition. For the first time in their short lives, they were apart from each other in separate beds. Their worried parents were allowed into the recovery room. They stood by their beds and touched 2 separate children for the first time. After the operation, the head of the medical team was cautious.
It went very well slowly. There were moments that we just thought that we were not able to actually finish it in a reasonable time. There was a major blood loss in one of the babies, but they compensated that properly, so we as surgeons didn't suffer. The brain is completely separated, and even we were able to pull both babies apart. So basically they are 2 human beings now.
Throughout the day, the medical team warned everyone just how delicate the girl's condition was.
Any patient who's undergone a procedure this intensive is going to have to remain in the ICU in intensive care for at least a couple days, just to allow the brain swelling to diminish, to make sure there are no blood clots or bleeding happening in the brain.
Then, this afternoon, a hospital spokesman announced a setback.
At 9:17, Maria Teresa was taken back to the operating room to deal with a subdural hematoma. Subdural hematoma is a collection of blood underneath the scalp, and it needs to be dealt with to make sure that the pressure doesn't build up in the scalp. This was not necessarily an unexpected complication. Dr. Jorge Lazarev has sent word that he thinks that this will be manageable.
Subdural hematoma, bleeding under the skin, a harsh reminder of how dangerous this operation was.
This is very complicated surgery, and until we get past several days, it'll be life-threatening for both of them. We're minute to minute, hour to hour, day by day.
5 hours later, after doctors stopped the bleeding in her brain, she returned to intensive care where she was in critical but stable condition. At a late afternoon news conference, the doctors who did the amazing operation looked back on it.
No, but it will be several days probably to get some insight into whether they're doing okay, and maybe sometime next week where we'll have a better idea.
What's the general feeling of the outlook?
Well, right now I think the outlook is very positive. I think everybody in this team feels, if we could have stopped in the middle of the surgery and had this epiphany, we would have said, this is wonderful. Everything has gone incredibly smooth.
The chief plastic surgeon was even able to joke about the girls' hairstyles.
Well,
because we didn't have enough scalp and we had to do some expanding and use skin grafts, right now their hairdo isn't much better than some of the undergraduate students at UCLA. In the future, we will be able to shift or stretch the skin that we transplanted to give them a more normal appearance to their scalp.
The doctors downplayed their role, saying it was all part of the job.
You have to understand, it was not a celebratory experience at that time. The separation occurred, and we just went on to the next step. It wasn't like we were out there drinking champagne and crying and laughing or anything like that.
Last week, the girls shared a birthday cake. They will never have another party like that. Next time, they'll need 2 cakes. But doctors say it could be many weeks and a long recovery before the twins return home.
Happy birthday to you.
We'll continue to follow this remarkable story and keep you up to date on the baby's progress.